His Father's Son. By Osé Dergriff. A pilgrim once sat down to rest his weary feet. In that quiet pause, he was granted the rare privilege of looking back upon the road he had traveled. 65 years of journeying, of pressing on, of learning by movement what could never have been learned by standing still. It was no small distance. Along that road came experience, and with experience came knowledge. Much of what he did not at first understand was slowly unveiled to him as the miles passed beneath his feet. There were seasons when he longed to know what lay around the next bend. There were other times when he feared it, feared even to venture far enough to find out. Yet life taught him what youth resists. There are some things you simply cannot stop. They are the bullets you must bite. But even there, wisdom waited. For not every bullet is meant to destroy. Not every sharp moment is an explosion. Some things come, not to ruin a man, but to prove him. And so, as he sat, memory drew him inward. The farther he looked back, the more he found himself asking the oldest questions of all. Who am I? Where have I come from? And where am I headed? As for that last question, he had made peace with one truth. What lay ahead was still in many ways a dream. And perhaps the most honest thing a man can do with a dream is to keep believing. A dream, a wish, a fancy. What are they, if not the soul's way of reaching beyond the visible? They are the shapes hope takes when the future has not yet spoken plainly. They are glimpses of what may be, and sometimes of what we wish had been. In such moments, a man may choose either to grieve and sink beneath the weight of what is missing, or to imagine forward and continue walking. Better that, surely, than surrendering to self-pity. Then his thoughts turned to his father, long since gone. Once, a man had asked him whether he thought he was the only one who had a father. It was such a strange question that it stayed with him. Where had it come from? All he had done was speak of his father, perhaps to recount, perhaps even to celebrate. But time has a way of softening rash judgments. The pilgrim now understood that the man had not spoken out of hatred, but from the sore place of an unhealed memory. Not every childhood is sheltered. Not every son remembers his father with warmth. We are not all equally fortunate. Yet neither was the pilgrim untouched by pain. He still remembered the last beating his father gave him. It had been so severe that, in that moment, he thought death was near. But he lived, and somehow, though he could hardly explain it, he did not become bitter. Why he was spared that poison, he could not say. His father was not the kind of man who played with his children, nor the kind who took them out into the world for delight's sake. There were nights when he came home drunk, and it did not take much for anger to find its way toward the pilgrim's mother, yet not toward him and his siblings. Instead, his father moved through life with a hard and predictable rhythm: home in the evening, attention to the vegetable garden, a meal, and then bed. The same bed he shared with his wife for over 50 years. The pilgrim sighed. Wow, that itself was a lifetime. It was remarkable that despite the rough times, they had stayed together. He wondered whether that was love. He was not questioning it so much as taking note of it. He remembered, too, that the beatings had stopped. He could not recall anything he would have called romance between his parents. He never saw them holding hands, not even a kiss. Why then should he find it strange that his father never told any of his children that he loved them? It was not hatred. It was simply his nature, and perhaps the culture in which he had grown up. Then the pilgrim's heart missed a beat. My boys are all men now. I have 2 of them. I do not remember ever telling them. A sudden urgency rose within him. He reached for his phone and sent the message. Just wanted you to know I love you. The reply came back. I never doubted that, Dad. I know it. It's not what you said. It's what you did. But thanks. And by the way, I love you too. And there, in that brief exchange, something old and unspoken found its voice. Now in the clearer light of age, the pilgrim sees what he could not then. His father, too, was human. He, too, had a story. He, too, had wounds, burdens, weaknesses, things perhaps never spoken, perhaps never healed. He, too, was trying, in his own flawed way, to survive. And so the pilgrim confesses this much: as long as your father lives, you have a father. Whether he makes you proud or leaves you wounded, there is nothing you can do to escape the fact that you are his son. You are his seed, and perhaps that truth carries with it not only identity, but responsibility. For if a son is given the chance to perfect what his father could not, how can he spend his life only condemning the man who fell short? Is not one of life's hidden mercies this, that children may rise where their fathers stumbled? And what father, whatever his failings, is not gladdened to see his children do better than he did? So the pilgrim sat with these thoughts, not as one who had solved life, but as one who had traveled long enough to know that understanding comes slowly. The road had not answered everything, but it had revealed enough to make him gentler in judgment, steadier in hope, and more willing to believe that even pain may become part of a man's wisdom. And perhaps that is one of the quiet mercies of age, not that it explains everything, but that it teaches a man to see more tenderly. The father he once feared, the man he once could not understand, had become part of the very lens through which he now saw himself. Time had not erased the pain, but it had placed it in a wider frame, and in that frame there was room not only for memory but for mercy. The pilgrim rose at last from his resting place, not because every question had been settled, but because the journey was not yet done. He rose knowing that life is rarely understood while it is being lived, but often only afterward, when the heart is still enough to read its own history. He rose carrying this truth, that a man may inherit pain and yet choose not to pass it on unchanged, that he may receive silence and yet answer with love, that he may come from brokenness and still become a blessing. And with that, the pilgrim went on, wiser than before, softer than before, and resolved that where those before him had fallen short, he would, by grace, do better. Pilgrim, His Father's Son, by Osé Dergriff.